Hi friends, welcome back to the ForJars kitchen. My name's Leilani and today we are going to be canning beans. Now the reason why I love canning beans is because it is a way more affordable way to have them instead of going to the store and buying them. And we're going to show you how to do that right now. Now before we get started, you want to make sure that all your jars are prepped and prepared for canning. And for this recipe, you're going to need a variety of beans or just one particular bean. Whatever one is your favorite, go with that. But today we have kidney beans, black beans, and pinto beans. We have salt and vinegar to wipe our rims. So today the method we are going to use for our beans is the no soak method. And that means that our beans are going to be completely dry as we put them in our jars. Now before we go ahead and use our beans, you want to sort of sift through them to make sure there's no rocks or stones in them, because that's not something that you want in your jars. All right, I am going to work with our pinto beans first, and for this recipe, for every pint jar, you're gonna want to put in a half a cup of your dried beans. Then you're gonna take a half a teaspoon of salt. I am using a pink Himalayan salt, and the salt is optional. You certainly do not have to add that. Our next step, we are going to add some hot water, leaving 1 inch of headspace. And don't worry, as these beans cook, they absolutely will expand. Next, I'm going to take my debubbler and just give it a good mix. That way the beans don't stick to the bottom. Then I'm just gonna take a dab of vinegar, wipe my rim, add my ForJars lid, the ring, fingertip tight. Having canned beans is an absolute luxury, to have them home canned. Because when I grew up, you know, we obviously had them at the store, but it's very nostalgic for me because it's a part of my culture, and having beans ready to go just like that is an awesome feeling. And it's so easy, so inexpensive to do. And I love being able to say that I have my own beans that I've canned. I use them in all kinds of recipes, mostly rice and beans, but chili, it's our last jar. Salt. Pour in our water. Ah, perfect. Debubbler, give it a good little mix. Wipe our rim. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Fingertip tight. Now let's go put these in the pressure canner. Now we have our beans ready to go into the pressure canner. Now today I'm going to be working with the All-American pressure canner. And before I go ahead and put the beans in, I need to make sure that I lubricate the inside edge here with some olive oil. And inside the canner, I put in 3 quarts of water. That'll equal about 2 to 3 inches of water that we need for this particular canner. If you are not working with the All-American canner, definitely refer to the directions of your own pressure canner. And for this recipe, we are at 0 to 1,000 feet. And for pints, it is going to be 75 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure. Now that we have our pressure canner lubricated, I'm going to make sure that we go over just a couple small safety features before we place the lid on and start our canning. The first thing you want to do is check out your venting pipe. You want to make sure that you can tilt it up and be able to see right through to make sure there's no blockage. If there is blockage, you can take a pin and place it through there, because you want this to be completely clear and open so that way the steam can come out. Now for this particular model, this lid has an arrow and a beveled edge. You want to make sure that both of them line up. Now we're going to seal the lid, making sure that we tighten up opposite toggles. So I'm going to turn up my stove to high because what I want is for the steam to start building up in my pressure canner. And this vent right here is going to start venting out the steam. You're going to start to see it. Once you see the steam shooting out, at that point, you're gonna want to time it for 10 minutes. You want a 10-minute venting time, and then I'll tell you the next step from there. Now I can hear and actually see the venting, so we are gonna start our venting time for 10 minutes. Now that our venting time is completed, I'm going to put our weighted gauge on top of the vent. And at this point, I'm just gonna watch the dial gauge to make sure that we stay within pressure. Now that our venting time is completed, I'm going to put our weighted gauge on top of the vent. And at this point, I'm just gonna watch the dial gauge to make sure that we stay within pressure. Now that we have the weighted gauge on, I'm going to lower the heat a little bit, because at this point, when it comes to pressure canning, I don't want it full blast on high, because then the pressure is just gonna keep going up. Now don't be afraid, it's okay. When you're working with a pressure canner, you kind of have to stand by it and babysit it a little. So with that said, you want to keep making sure that you're checking your temperatures and checking your gauge, that it doesn't go over the amount of pressure that we want, which is 11 pounds of pressure. Now, if you go over the pressure just a little bit, like let's say you go to like 13 pounds, 14, even 15, that's fine, it's a little high. But if you go below the amount of pressure, which we are trying to stick to 11 pounds of pressure, if you go below the pressure, then you have to start your timing all over again, and we don't want to do that. Now our pressure canner is ready to open, so I'm just gonna lift up the weight. And you can also see here that we have 0 pressure. Our dial gauge is down to 0, and we're ready to open up the canner. All right, let's take a look. Wonderful. These beans look great. All right, last one. Okay, let's take a closer look. Gorgeous, homemade canned beans. Now, what we're gonna do is we are gonna allow these to rest for 24 hours, because I mean, as you could see, these jars are still piping hot and bubbling. And then the next morning, we're gonna check all of our seals, and then they will be ready to store in the pantry. Thanks guys for watching so much, and as always, God bless.